Okay, so we've got some women's Six Nations stats for you. I will say before we start that it is actually fairly difficult to find stats for the women's game, even though this is like the premier women's test competition in the Northern Hemisphere. It's still rather difficult to find stats. The official website has been finally updated after round 3 with some stats that we can talk about, but other stats that I feel should be easily obtainable, I can't find anywhere. And like there's simple stats like how many scrums has each team had. I can't find those on like individually for games, or I can't find them in an overall thing either. And the same with lineouts as well. I know like in the scrum what kind of percentage teams are doing in terms of each of the games for the scrum. I know in terms of the lineout how many they've won, how many they've stolen, etc. But I still don't have an overall number, and I can't just add the two together because you could have lineouts that where they've knocked on or where they have been free kicked or something else has happened where it doesn't fall into the won or stolen category. So we can't get overall kind of pictures on those, but we will look at the stats that we do have. And also as well, I would ask that you like, comment and share this video, because also it can be difficult to get eyes on videos like this. Like there aren't that many around kind of dealing with statistics for the women's game at this level, and it would just be nice to get the word out there and kind of encourage other people to do something similar as well, because I think it's the fastest growing facet of our game, and we need to, I think, be providing the same kind of information and kind of videos like this on that side of the game as well. But we're going to start with possession. So at the top there are Wales. So you can see the round 1, 2, and 3 numbers there. I'm not going to go through each of those, but you can see it there on the screen. But Wales basically averaged 56% possession. Next then Ireland with 55, England 54, France 50, Scotland 45, and Italy at the bottom with 40. So Wales, Ireland, and England all very similar possession numbers for them, but with varying degrees of success. Obviously, England, if they have a lot of ball, they're going to hurt teams, and we're seeing that in the score lines that they're putting up, and that's why people are very worried about this weekend's tie against Ireland. What is the margin going to be in that game? What's the scoreline going to be? Wales, we've seen them have good success with ball in hand as well in the first couple of rounds, but then they had more possession against England, but still didn't come out on the right side of that. But I think that's more to do with again, how good this England team are. I think this England team have multiple ways of winning games. They don't necessarily have to have the most ball or the most territory to do that. I think they're just so exceptional. And until the other teams do raise their standards over time, which we're seeing now beginning to happen, then I think for games against them, things like possession and territory will become more important. But when the other teams are playing each other, I think it does kind of have an impact. We see Italy there with only 40% of possession. They got that win against Ireland actually with their least amount of possession, with only 38 in the last round. And then they also caused France problems with less of the ball as well. Not so much against England, but again, England really are, an outlier for stuff like this, and it can be hard to kind of compare anybody to England. Even France at times, can be maybe a step down, but there are areas where France are very close to England as well. Next thing then we're going to look at is territory. So England at the top there with 57, Wales, Ireland and France all on 53, Scotland 48, and Italy on 36. So England dominating the territory, no real surprise if they're having that much ball, and they have so many different ways to attack. They've got a good kicking game. They've got big forwards who can truck it up. They've got backs who can step and who have pace as well. All giving them those ins into the opposition territory, opposition 22, and also as well just kind of the complexity of their attack is again a step ahead of most of the other teams as well, which allows them to not only get into territory but stay there, and they can be very patient as well with the ball. Like they won't force things if they don't have to. It doesn't mean that they don't have intricate play, but what it does means a lot of times when they go to that intricate play, their skills are high enough that they're not knocking on the way we may see other teams do. Wales, they're kind of on a similar kind of trajectory to England. Obviously not nowhere near the same level as England, but the development is kind of going along the same kind of path of trying to have more possession and more territory, putting the ball through the hands and trying to develop their attacking game there. They found against England, though, when we look at some other stats later, that there are obviously certain aspects of their game that were good against other teams were kind of blunted by this exceptional England team. Ireland, they've had a lot of ball, a lot of territory, but they've looked again very ponderous when they've had the ball, and just kind of find it very difficult to get any kind of momentum because the cohesion obviously isn't there in the team yet, but that is going to develop with time. France, with more territory than they had, kind of, the possession was 50%, but another team who can be patient, and then, but the good, I think, with them is their transition from, when they make a break or you make a mistake, that transition to going from just kind of slow phase play to striking is very good, and they always have lots of support runners for the person in possession. Scotland and Italy, not that much territory. Italy have shown that they can, cause problems and get results with less territory. Scotland, not so much. So it's going to be interesting when Scotland play Ireland, I think, to see between those teams. Ireland might still have more of the ball and more of the territory even in that game, but can they develop enough in those couple of weeks to actually get that win over in Scotland? The next thing then we're going to look at is defensive performances. So I'm going to start with tackles. Scotland made 590, Italy 571, England 439, France 439, Wales 411, and Ireland 342. So Scotland making the most tackles there, and Italy next. And they're the two teams with less possession than the others and less territory as well. So you can see why they're having to make more tackles, because generally the other team are in possession and they're forcing them to make those tackles. England and France with identical tackle rates, and also actually overall their defense is very, very similar. There's just one missed tackle between them. You'll see when we come on to that. Wales and Ireland making the least tackles. I would have expected Ireland, given that the way things have gone for them, that their tackle numbers would have been up a bit higher than they were. But the problem, I think, with Ireland is what we're going to see when we come on to the next stat, which is missed tackles. So we've got Scotland at the top at 108, Ireland with 95, Italy 79, Wales 68, England 44, and France 43. So as I said, England and France, just one missed tackle, between them there. They've made exactly the same amount of tackles, so you won't be surprised that their tackle percentage is very close to each other. But if we look there, like Scotland, they made the most tackles. It kind of makes sense that they've made the most, or had the most missed tackles as well. But Ireland with the least amount of tackles and the second most missed tackles is a worrying number for them. And we look at our tackle percentage here. Got France and England at the top with 91%, Italy 88, Wales 86, Scotland 85, and Ireland down on 78. So France and England, those are really good numbers. To be in the 90s for your tackle percentage is very good. Whether that's the women's game or the men's game, the kind of pass rate that you kind of see a lot across a lot of different competitions is, that kind of band. Italy down to Scotland, 88 down to 85 is what you really would expect from, a kind of passable or a decent defensive performance. Ireland down at 78, shows that they're really not up to scratch compared to the other defenses yet. They are they're not just a young team, they are a very, very inexperienced team as well. Obviously, going through the Six Nations, they are adding that experience and caps to the team. And, part of it is World Cup happens, players retire, and you have to have a rebuilding process. But Ireland didn't make the World Cup. Players will obviously still retire, but also players spoke out about the problems in Irish rugby, and certain senior players who you would imagine would be first choice in their positions aren't getting selected at all, and people are talking about how they've been frozen out of the Irish setup for speaking up. But it means now that we have a situation where a lot of the players in the starting team and in the squad as well have single digit caps. We had players making debuts and stuff like that. A lot of players playing their first Six Nations. And so I think with time, the kind of cohesiveness and communication and just all of that comes with players playing with each other, will see that defensive performance improve. And I would imagine that by the time that, after the Scotland game, in that Scotland game, they should be somewhere in the 80s for their tackle percentage. If we look then at individuals, top tackler is Evie Gallagher, next is Lana Skeldon, Niamh Jones. So Gallagher is 55, Skeldon 54, Jones 49, Rachel Malcolm then with 48, Francesca Scorbini with 47, Marley Packer 46, Giordana Duca 45, and Michaela Solari 45 as well. So not a big surprise that you have a lot of Scottish and Italians on there, given that they're the teams that have made the most tackles. Niamh Jones, though, what a performance from her, given that Ireland have made the least amount of tackles. For her to be third overall just shows that she really has stood up in defence for Ireland. But Evie Gallagher and Lana Skeldon, great shifts from them to put in, just between the two of them, over 100 tackles in 3 games. And sometimes we used to have an old thing of, defending is more tiring than attacking because you have to make all these tackles, etc. And now the accepted knowledge has kind of gone the other way, where people are saying that attacking is actually more tiring than defending, because you've got to make the runs and you're the one going into contact, etc. But if you look at the teams like that Scotland have had to play, they've already played England and France, who both have big runners that you need big tackles as well to stop them getting gain lines. So they're not going to be powder puff tackles that Evie and Lana have had to put in there. And yeah, I think that really great performance from them. Next then, missed tackles, we've got Lindsay O'Donnell there with 12, Helen Nelson 11, Sophia Stefan 11, Lisa Newman 10, Ronica Madia 10, Nicola Friday 9, Chloe Raleigh 9, and Abby Fleming 9. So again, we're seeing more of the players on the teams that have to make the most tackles, also missing tackles. And that kind of makes sense when you think that, if your team has to make whatever many, like 20% more or 30% more tackles, there's more likely that you're going to have a higher number of missed tackles as well. Not just because the volume is there, but also the pressure that the attacking team are putting on is going to lead to things like line breaks and missed tackles, etc. Next, then we are going to have a look at passes. So England have passed the most, 700 overall. Wales are next with 529. Scotland 507. Ireland 490. France 455 and Italy 371. So England almost 200 passes more than the next team. We've seen them, we've seen already that they've had a lot of ball and a lot of territory, and I think their passing game plays into that a lot as well. They're very good at putting the ball through the hands. They've always got like a number of options as well to pass to. It's not just a case of hands down the line all the time. Let's go back and forward across the field. They're much more sophisticated in their attack than that. They've got not just backs who can step you, but they've also got forwards who actually look for space rather than contact as well, and have like the skills of backs and are able to offload. And just the fact that the support there, that when you're giving the pass, you can be very confident that there's somebody there who's going to take it, even when sometimes they make blind passes as well. Wales again, kind of following that kind of England example of like they've gone, they have the territory, they have the possession, and they are putting the ball through the hands as well. Italy, we've seen they don't have that much possession, so it's not that surprising that they don't pass that much. France, a little bit surprising that they're down in second last. But again, I think where France excel is that transition from defense to attack. They're so fast at switching on and making, they almost prefer to defend, make you make a mistake and then capitalize on it. And they're probably the best team at that transition, from that defensive line to suddenly they're attacking, and they have multiple options as well when they're going forward. In terms of individuals, then we've got Lucy Packer there at the top with 222, Kira Bevan 192, Katie Madison 190, Pauline Bourdon with 174, Molly Scuffle McKay with 140, Holly Atchison with 113, Eleanor Snowsill 106, and Helen Nelson 94. So we don't actually see a single Italian player in the top 8. I think their top passer is somewhere down like in maybe 10th or 11th overall in the competition. But Lucy Packer, you can see that she is the one that really drives that England team around the park from 9, and she has a great range of passes as well. It's not just a case of just give it to whoever's standing at first receiver or like one out for a carry or anything like that. She does have good variety to her game. Next, then we are going to look at handling errors. So France have made the most handling errors with 63, Italy next 47, England 46, Wales 46, Scotland 44, and Ireland at the bottom there with 37. So France, at the top, most handling errors. Like obviously, it's not just a skill level thing with them, because we've seen the skills that the players have. That some of them are just have really silky skills. But I think with them, it's a case of there is a freedom to try things, and sometimes they don't come off, and therefore it leads to handling errors. But that doesn't affect them the next time. The next time they try it, it will come off. They make a break and they score a try. But we've seen some amazing offloads from them as well. Italy, we've seen kind of something similar with them, but with probably less success than the France have. We can see that we talk about kind of Wales developing, in a similar style to England. I think Italy are developing in a similar style to France, as well. Then, Ireland to have the least handling errors shows that there are some positives for them in what has been kind of a very difficult Six Nations for them so far. If we look then at handling error percentage, France are at the top with 8%, Italy next with 7%, Scotland 5%, Wales 5%, Ireland and England there with 4% each. So Ireland to be at the same level as England in terms of handling errors is obviously a good thing for them. And it also shows as well that they have a bit of a ceiling for taking more risks and potentially making more errors, but still not being not being worse than teams like Italy or France in terms of their percentage of handling errors. So I'd like to actually see them taking more risk with ball in hand, maybe moving the ball a bit quicker as well, and maybe making a higher percentage of errors, but actually getting more bang for the buck, as it were, when they do have possession. The next thing then we are going to have a look at is meters made. So England have made the most meters with 3,600, France next with 2,734, Wales 2,347, Ireland 2,071, Scotland 1,968, and Italy 1,894. So Scotland and Italy at the bottom there, but again we talked about how they've got less ball than anyone else and less territory as well, and obviously having less ball, they're going to have less chances to carry, but also I think then the fact that when they're carrying and maybe not necessarily making ground, that's then having a knock-on effect on their territory as well. But England up there with almost 900 meters more made than France just shows again what an exceptional team this England team are. They have all across the park they have great carriers, and it's not just a case of gas out wide and big lumps in the middle. Like the bigger forwards, they've got talk about Sarah Byrne, the skills that she has at a tight head prop. She's got a step, she's got pace, and she has lovely offloading skills as well, and she's got great reading of the game too. And because they have those threats all over the pitch, you can't just focus on maybe teams like Ireland. I think you can look at Ireland and say, well, these 3 or 4 players, other players that they give the ball to carry. And I think Wales as well against England, the same kind of thing happened, especially with Tuipulotu, where it was like England just looked and thought, okay, well, Tuipulotu is a big carrier for them. Then they've got a few others as well. We're just going to double up and target them and hit them hard when they carry and stop the progress that they're making. Whereas with the England team and France as well, there's so many threats. You can't do that. You've got to be on it. You've got to trust your system rather than targeting individuals. Next, then we are going to look at talking about individuals meters made. So Abigail Dow or Abby Dow is top there with 525. Chloe Raleigh next with 368. What a performance from her, from fullback for Scotland. We saw that they are right down at the bottom there with Italy in terms of overall meters made, but she really is carrying a big burden in terms of go forward for Scotland, providing that, and she'll probably do with one or two others to kind of take a bit more of the load as well for them. Next time we have Jess Breach 362, Claudia McDonald 307, Sarah Byrne we talked about, for a tight head prop 295 meters is just absolutely crazy. Derbla Nickerbeard then 285, Courtney Keat with 284, Marley Packer with 247. So you can see, as I talked about with England, it's just threats everywhere in terms of carriers. You can't just shut 1 or 2 people down. You've got to, your system has to be able to just shut down their attack, or at least contain their attack, and stop them from making those meters. There's so many ways to pick holes in your defense, run over you, run around you, kick over you, that it's very, very hard to actually stop them doing that. But then just a word for Dermot and Nicobar, first Six Nations, she's only got a handful of caps for Ireland. It really is an amazing performance for her to be in those top carriers as well, and just shows that there are bright sparks for Ireland in terms of their development in the Six Nations. Then back to our teams, then we're going to look at the number of carries. So England have made the most with 461, Wales next with 435, France 390, Ireland 389, Scotland 349, and Italy 293. So again, we're seeing the teams that have like the most territory and possession, the ones making the most carries, the teams with the least of those making the least carries as well. And France and Scotland or France and Ireland, are in the middle there, and are also in the middle for carries as well. If we look at individual players, we have like the most carries, Marley Packer for England 51, Dermot Nicobar 46, Georgia Evans 43, Abby Dow 42, Sam Monaghan 40, Cecilia Tuipulotu 37, Beth Lewis 37, and Gwelian Pierce 37 as well. So you see some really big shifts being put in by the likes of Packer and Dow for England, taking a lot of responsibility on them. But again, they know that there are other players there to take that on. For Wales, we can see those four there really are the ones that are the kind of go-tos for them in terms of carries. Like Georgia Evans, obviously as the captain, leads from the front. Tuipulotu, as such a young woman, she did get injured against England. Hopefully, she's going to come back because she really has been, a big standout for them in the Women's Six Nations so far. Next, then we are going to look at in terms of teams, meters per carry. So England at the top with making 7.81 meters per carry, France next 7.01, Italy 6.46, Scotland 5.64, Wales 5.52, and Ireland 5.32. So England again, it's not just that they're making more carries, it's that they're making more meters every time they carry, and that just builds and builds pressure on teams. And it's no wonder that they're the score lines that we're seeing, because if England are making more ground than you, and they have more ball than you, and they're making more carries than you, inevitably they're going to be on your line, or over your line on a very regular basis. And it's very hard to defend against. France, we're seeing that they are kind of very efficient in terms of they don't have as much ball, they don't make as many carries as most of their teams, but when they do, it's impactful, and they're obviously making gain line, but also making good meterage as well when they do carry the ball. Italy, we've seen them made the least amount of carries, but when they do carry the ball, they're at least having an impact. Wales, they're hanging onto the ball and they're making a lot of carries, but they're not making that much in terms of, compared to the other teams at least, that much from each carry. And that's maybe something that they work on. Is probably, it varying who carries the ball, and some of their players, I think, when they carry, they maybe don't carry their weight, if that kind of makes sense, in terms of they might be a big player, but they're kind of a little bit upright going into contact, and they don't, in terms of driving beyond contact, maybe it doesn't really happen for them. So that's something that's going to happen as they obviously develop their squad, that they're going to get more players in who can who are able to have an impact on carries, and the players who are there as well are obviously going to improve as well. And kind of something similar with Ireland too, that Ireland are going to the likes of we saw Friday Monaghan, we've seen Dugang as well carrying, and Grace Moore as well. We've seen carry for them too, but not enough variety, I think, for them. It kind of makes it easier for the opposition to shut things down. The next thing then we're going to look at is some set piece stats. So in terms of lineouts, France and England have won the most lineouts with 33. I don't have any stats in terms of overall lineouts, so I can't tell you how they've gone in terms of percentages, but France and England at least have won the most lineouts. Wales next then with 29, Scotland 27, Italy 20s. I don't know why I say England when I say Italy, but Italy 26 and Ireland down the bottom there with 23. But then when we have a look at the individual stats, I think this was very, very surprising for me. So in terms of individual lineouts, like Nicola Friday has won 20 lineouts for Ireland, and if you think that they've only won 23 overall, so she's at about 90% of Ireland lineout takes. Now, it means that she's doing really, really well in terms of her performance, but also means that the opposition can target her and know that she's probably going to be the recipient. But teams know that because they've looked at other games as well. They've seen that she is the main target, but she's still claiming them. Just shows that she really is performing really well for Ireland. Again, another kind of positive for them to take out of this. Next is Zoe Aldcroft with 18, Giordana Duca 13, Abby Fleming 11, Audrey Forlani 10, Beth Lewis 9, Gail Hermé 9, and Lindsay O'Donnell 9 as well. Onto then the team stats again. So Lineouts Steals, Wales have stolen 5, so Italy, France 4, England, Scotland and Ireland 2 each. There are Lineouts Steal numbers available for individuals, but they're not high enough yet to really kind of show anybody standing out. So we'll look at that at the end of the tournament. The next thing then we're going to look at is Scrum Performance. So the first thing to look at is how the teams have gone round by round. And because I can't get a figure for the number of scrums that teams have had, I can't work out an overall average. But England have been 100% rounds 1, 2, and 3. So obviously overall they are 100%. Ireland have been 89, 193. So, around that 90% or above mark, which again is a really good thing for Ireland overall. I can't make out an average for them because if they've had 2 scrums in the game where they were 100% and maybe 10 in the one where they're 89, you can't just add those numbers together and get an average. You'd have to know how many scrums it's out of. France then next with 200% performance, but then they went 60% against Ireland, again showing that Irish scrum is something that they've actually improved coming into this Six Nations, and obviously an area that they've worked a lot on. Italy next with 78 in round 1, 75 and then 100%. Wales went 75, 100 and then 75, and Scotland there with 83, 67 and 80. So, not terrible scrum numbers for them, but certainly not something that they would see as being a weapon just yet, and probably something that when Ireland go to Scotland in the final round that they might actually try to target. Now, the last thing that we're going to look at is scrum penalties. So Italy have conceded the most with 8. Next is Wales with 4, France and Scotland 4 as well. Ireland with just 3 and England with 2. So you can see that England, only 2 scrum penalties given away. They also have the 100% in the scrum overall. So it's not just their general play. Also their set piece is very good. But it's positives for Ireland that their set piece seems to be fairly solid as well. It will be obviously get a good examination against that England team and maybe not put up the same numbers as we've seen in the rest of the tournament, but that could be you could basically just look at that as being a blip, and you would expect them to kind of come back to decent performance against Scotland then as well. But yeah, that is the kind of end of our look at the stats. We will have another look at the stats probably at the end of the tournament, so we'll have a couple of rounds to let the numbers change a little bit and see where positions have changed from here as well. So that's going to be interesting to look at. I would ask you again, if you haven't done so, to consider pressing the like, sharing, maybe even subscribing to the channel and posting a comment. It really would help out a lot. But I will be back with previews for the games of the weekend in the Women's Six Nations and also the URC.